All right, and with that, welcome to the KCP community meeting. It's close to the end of April, and I'm not sure why I'm saying this every time. At this point, it's like a date and weather report, but I hope everyone is doing well. Before we get started, we are a CNCF project. That means this meeting and every other community communication or any other community channel that KCP is using is governed by the CNCF Code of Conduct, which boils down to let's be excellent to each other. So we're going to do exactly that. We have a lot of people here today. So we will start off. So first of all, if you want to, there is an attendee list in the meeting notes. Feel free to add yourself there. And the first agenda item that we always have is welcoming any new attendees that would like to say hi and maybe introduce themselves. All right. Then let's move on to the next agenda item. Let me bring up the community meeting minutes. I kind of, I guess, added both topics here, but this is, I think, like a more of a shared topic. So monorepository. I'm not sure. Does anyone want to present this topic? Else I can talk about it.
You can, I guess.
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Well, essentially, we have a bunch of repositories that KCP itself depends on, and managing dependencies and their releases is a bit difficult because they're linked to release cycle of KCP itself, but because they're in a different place, we need to do the release itself and cutting the binaries or tagging the release in all of those repositories separately. So the idea would be to have all of that code that we depend on in a single repository in KCP itself, and basically do the release and dependency management centrally from that one place. This would be similar to what upstream Kubernetes does. So that means having a staging area where we where we store the code and do all the updates from, and then distribute it to staged repositories. So this would be basically copying the code from the staged directory into their respective repos. This unfortunately means that we would need quite a lot of tooling around this. Bash scripts and GitHub actions that we would maintain, but the good news is that most of it is already implemented and maintained by Kubernetes project. So if we can, it would be best to just copy paste, not reinvent the wheel, and it seems to be working well for them. I think we could also benefit.
So what I'm wondering is how much of a migration is this? Okay, we need to have a staging folder in the KCP repository. And then we would need to have automation that's on a tag in the stage. I'm not sure how it exactly works in Kubernetes. So maybe I believe we have a release manager present here from Kubernetes. Is there maybe some, how does it work?
Yeah, I guess I can go ahead. So basically, how does it work for Kubernetes? You have something called publishing bot. I think it's a tool written in Go. It basically runs every several hours, I think every 4 hours, and it takes about 4 hours to finish. And it replicates the commits and tags between the KK, so the Kubernetes main repo, and the staging repos. So this is how the tool works. It is basically run in some cluster, and you just run it every several hours, and it does the job. It's not too complicated from that point. It has been pretty stable. I believe my main concern would be how well it would take the existing repositories. So if you will do migration, I believe we have repos already existing. How well would it take those repositories? So this is probably the key point to check. And other than that, it shouldn't be too complicated. Like from the tooling side, it should just work. Yeah. There is a hands up from Nello. You can go ahead.
And I guess we can't hear you. Maybe the wrong microphone.
You can't hear neither. Still can't hear you, Matt.
Okay, now you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay. Regards to the existing repositories, one Git repository can have multiple trees in it. So we can just keep the old trees, put them into a new branch, and then just reroute basically the main branch. I don't think that should cause any problems unless someone insists on using the old code, but that can just be kept for to preserve it, and then let the bot just override whatever it needs to override. I don't think there should be any problems. Also, we have the SDK module. We could also think about then putting that into the staging area instead of having that into a separate module. Yeah, my 2 cents.
I mean, that makes sense to me regarding the SDK.
There is also CLI, the CLI doc generator.
Yeah, I mean the CLI doc generator is kind of a special Go module. It's just there for our CI to generate docs. So I wouldn't put that into staging, but SDK and CLI, if we move to this approach, it's my understanding that I guess Kube is doing the staging thing to, I don't know, effectively avoid having multiple modules in the same repository. I don't know. And we currently have this.
They are different modules, just the way their dependencies are managed is through a single point of truth, which is the Go mode that's in the root of the Kubernetes repo. And this is then reconciled with the staged sub-projects, if we can call them like that. And then those are then redistributed to their repos. It's a nice way to multiplex the maintenance of all the repos they have.
Okay. So I think we have a rough idea of what this would look like because, well, we know it from Kube. Are people specifically in favor or against it? Does anyone have opinions? Marco?
I would just say that we should make sure to collect opinions from people who are heavily involved in Kubernetes development, like to make sure that they're okay with this. Like, I mean, from my point of view, who is like just a release manager for Kubernetes, it's fine, but I never really developed much for KK itself, and it can be tricky to set up everything. We want to make sure that people who has extensive KK experience can provide feedback on this and say that this is okay. I would just add that to the point.
So basically, just make sure that we, build or we use something that is known to work. And if someone from the core contributors tells us, not
Yes.
really nice, then we should.
In other words, we should perhaps ask Stefan about this because he works a lot with KK and can provide feedback on this if it would be nice to have this for KCP.
Okay, yeah. Nilo, I think you had your hand up next.
As someone who just got done setting up both for KK and KCP, I think the current setup for KCP is more a pain in the ass than KK, which is mostly because you have to pull all of the repositories, set them into your Go workspace, and so on and so on. With KK, you just pull the repository and you get working, so to speak.
All right. We also had a hand up, I think, from Simon.
Yeah, I think one thing I would like to add is that we've talked a ton about the design proposals now and that we maybe want to have it async. We should write down what are the things we actually want to have. I think we should add, because what I get from the conversation is that it also is supposed to aid like local development, right? Like, because so far it only says there's a release cycle, but it should also aid in local development, right? You just clone one repo and then you're good to go.
Yeah.
And now there's crickets.
No. I'm just waiting for maybe more opinions. Does anyone else have something to add? Okay. This seems to be quite the big change in, how our project is structured. So we're definitely not making a final decision today. But I like the idea of writing a proposal. I think something informal is enough. We haven't really done the KCP enhancement proposal process much. I recently wrote, what did I call it? An RC for the for moving the PR title scheme or Google Doc. But something I would like, so something that I would like to have is an issue on the GitHub repository that we pin to the repository. Whether that issue just links to a Google Doc or has the content itself, I personally don't care too much about it. If the doc is accessible to everyone, not everyone though is following the Slack channel too much or is in these meetings here. So we should make sure that it's somewhat reflected on the repository. Obviously, that means someone would need to write this proposal first. Is there someone who is willing to write it? Someone who wants to drive how this should look like?
I can help with this.
Yeah, me also.
Okay, that sounds like, so Robert and Marco, you're gonna coordinate on this and come up with a draft?
Yeah, that sounds
good.
Okay, perfect. And then, yeah, just feel free to open the GitHub issue with your proposal in there. And then I think we'll take the async conversation from there, so we have it documented for the future. Okay. Any further comments on the monorepo topic? Okay, then Robert and I just had a conversation that's a minor topic here. We have the embedded etcd repository under the KCP org. And that, I think, moved out some functionality we had in the KCP code to run the embedded etcd for development purposes of KCP. And I was just curious, maybe someone here knows. I think the purpose of this library is to be fairly generic. So it's not something that would be versioned with the KCP releases. So this would be maybe one of the repositories that don't fall under staging in the future. Is that the correct assumption? Does anyone here know?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. I'm a bit in a not a meeting friendly place. So in short, we moved it out because we needed it for a generic control plane repository. And yes, you are right. It's more like a logical cluster repository, which is basically disconnected from versioning and staging. Kind of different versioning. I don't expect it to change a lot, to be honest. So yes.
Okay. The scheme should be independent from KCP. Okay, Robert, does that help us already? That probably means we shouldn't align this
Yeah,
repository.
exactly. Yeah.
All right.
But then this has the consequence of what we've talked about, because embedded etcd is part of a dependency that's then linked to our Kubernetes fork, which then brings up a bunch of other dependencies up in the repository.
Yeah,
So-
the main idea was then like generic control repository, which acts as an example of single control planes. It used to vendor KCP. So to decouple this vendoring from KCP, we moved it to the external repository. So now instead of vendoring KCP and generic control plane vendors embedded etcd. It kind of swaps the dependency tree.
Yeah, I think what Robert right now is most concerned about is that basically the version in embedded etcd, like the etcd version in embedded etcd, is newer than what is in Kube, or at least in the Kube version that that we are like rebasing to.
Yeah, exactly. And Kubernetes has a lot more testing that we are currently able to provide. So my main concern is just using dependencies we don't really know that well. Well, in terms of testing and what upstream does.
So the question here is, okay. So where's this used? So basically, the problem is that the etcd clients in embedded that the embedded etcd is pulling in, at least effectively. So embedded etcd starts an etcd that is a bit newer than what Kube does. I think it's but by just a single patch version. And for KCP run without the embedded etcd, it only means that the client is newer than the server that you would expect to run it against. To me, that sounds acceptable. I believe that etcd is, or at least I hope, is fairly strict with its patch releases. So do we expect problems from that? As long as we keep the minor versions aligned, which I think hasn't been bumped in Kube for some time, I don't know. I guess we're good to go in a way. Do we think that?
Marvin, did you say it's just a patch version difference?
Yes.
Okay, so the changes ideally on paper should be minimal and should still be feature compatible.
Exactly.
So, Robert, if you notice any issues, just raise a PR. We can cut the required patch release, start push attack or something. It's like we own the repo, so I think we're quite flexible. I think we're
Yeah.
good, but if you see any notice vendoring conflicts, just basically tell us what needs to be done and we can just do it.
Will do. Just as a fun fact, pflag module going from 1.05 to 1.06, they have a breaking change in their API, like the library API. So yes, changing or upgrading patch versions should be fine on paper, but in practice, I've seen just doing those couple of rebases for KCP, I've seen so many breaking changes, even in patch releases, that it's a bit frightening.
Which of these changes is breaking?
So this was a name. I don't remember in what struct it was. A name attribute called name was suddenly being exported where it wasn't before.
Okay, that's far from ideal.
But in any case, we can give it a go. If our end-to-end tests pass, I think it should be fine.
Yeah. I would also say that if our tests pass, we are like reasonably confident about
Yeah.
this. Okay. All right. Okay. Then, do we have any other topics? Basically, opening the floor.
I would have one if there's nothing else.
Sure, go ahead.
So I also just wanted to say that Lucas is also joining here as well. We joined a little bit late. So as probably some of you might know, that Lucas is looking into, as part of his research for his master's, to see if we can replace etcd with a SQL database and look at some options there. In his finding, he did see that there was a previous maintainer by KCP that did some research with Stefan and did read a white paper about it. Lucas, do you remember the name of that guy?
Yes, hi. Sorry for just joining in now. Yes, the name was Steve Kuznetsov, I think. He was in discussion with Stefan about that, and also on here, what I gathered was from his LinkedIn profile. He also said that he published his findings in a short white paper, but I was unable to locate it up until now. And also, I tried contacting him via Slack and email, but he didn't get back to me up until now.
Do you know Marvin? Go ahead.
Are you looking at using like a relational data store natively or through something like Kine?
We're currently through something like Kine, but we are still exploring options.
Okay.
All right. I believe Steve was a previous maintainer of KCP. I'm just mildly aware that I think people were trying out things. I know that there is an old pull request, I think, that was adding CockroachDB supports.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But yeah, if anyone here, maybe anyone like watching the recording knows about the white paper in question, I guess that would be great help to Lucas.
Yeah, so we're just trying to find some information. We're still early in the process and getting started with this, and we're doing some research about it, and it will help guide us in the direction that Lucas will do his thesis as well, and then we don't want to necessarily redo steps that's already been done. Then. Thank you.
That's right. We don't want to follow in a path that's already been explored, and yeah. Okay, thank you.
So just quickly, you're aware of the cockroach PR then, right?
Not the exact PR, no. If you have that at hand, that would be great.
Okay, here, this is it.
Oh,
so,
great. Thank you.
Because we have, because we have this Kubernetes fork and the data store layer is, well, implemented in Kubernetes itself, we would have in KCP the liberty to, implement another data store that fulfills the interface natively. Like we would not necessarily need Kine, I guess, if someone would want to build that. But I haven't also looked at the interface, and I guess the interface has only been fulfilled by etcd version 3 now for quite some years. So I also don't know what the exact requirements for the interface are and how much of it is implied.
Okay, good. Yeah, good, but that helps out a lot. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, great, cool. Then yeah, I'm very, very much interested in what your research will result in. So this is a super interesting topic, especially for KCP, given the more like global nature as a control plane. So I'm excited for it. All right. Do we have, I'm not sure, maybe someone here has more experience with the etcd layer who wants to chime in? Or do we have any other topics? Okay, doesn't seem to be the case. 3, 2, 1, last chance. All right, then let me stop the recording, and I'm wishing you all a great Thursday afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are. So yeah, have a good one. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.